Steve here, 35 plus years coding experience. Today, I'm taking my 1200 star GitHub project and completely rebuilding that API with FastAPI from scratch. This isn't a polished tutorial. I'll show you how to think through the problems that separate the people that get stuck from the people that ship amazing software. Why FastAPI? It auto documents your code, which means it's always up to date and it gets done. Good documentation is what gets people to use your project, and that's how you grow your project from 1200 stars to 10,000. So the first thing I'm going to do today is I just want to get this installed locally and play with it, make sure I can get it installed. I don't know how far I'll get. Maybe I'll do a few other things, but I'd also like to get a new GitHub repo set up and also get a Docker container working with this. So I'm just going to be working with Claude and asking it questions and just showing you how I kind of go through this live if I was on my own, because I think that's valuable to share. So first things first, I want to find their repo. So they've got this GitHub repo here. And if you're not familiar with GitHub, it's basically a place where you can, deposit your code and let people contribute. So where do they have their installation instructions here? Requirements, installation, create. So this is using pip. Pip is a command line tool that downloads everything. I was thinking about doing it from the repository, but maybe I'll do it from here as well. So basically what I'm kind of getting at here is that there's different ways of installing things. And the way they're indicating here is that you can just use this command called pip, and I don't have that installed. So just to kind of show you is what is pip and how do you install it? I know what it is, but I'm just going to walk through some of these things and just kind of show you how you might do it if you were all by yourself. So it's a package installer for Python. Very cool. Shows you how to do it, how to install pip. Pip comes pre-installed. It's saying that it should be there, but I have Python installed and it's not there. So you might just even do this. You say, hey, I have Python installed, but pip is not there. Any ideas? The one thing I'm going to say about myself here is that, so it might just be pip3. Is that what it is? One thing I'm going to be brutally honest about with myself is that I'm a Google programmer. And what I mean by that is that I don't try to keep a bunch of stuff in my head. Like some people just like they learn how to code and they literally just code. I'm always going to Google. I'm always going to Claude just to ask it the most basic questions. I think that's a good thing. I think the most valuable thing is creativity, ingenuity, and solving problems. I don't think cramming your head with details. I mean, if you can do both, I mean, more power to you, right? But the real value here is you being able to come up with cool ideas and solve them, not so much keep everything in your head. I want to show you that I do the same thing. Since I was a little kid, I just Google like the most basic things that I've done 50 times. So it sounds like what it is that I have pip3. Yeah, pip3 here. And I'm just in a command line. If you're on a PC, then you've got a command line as well. So I've already installed Python, so I already have this. So, but if you haven't, so it's giving me those instructions here, how to install it using Brew. Brew is a command line tool for Mac that allows you to install different packages. So I'm actually kind of curious here. I was kind of interested in downloading the repo itself, but I might not need to. So I might just ask the question here: what's the advantage of using pip to install FastAPI versus using the GitHub repo? Simplicity and speed, updates. I'm going to just tell it what my plans are. So I'm going to be packaging up FastAPI inside a Docker container, and we'll need a Docker file to install it. Do you recommend? You're also going to see that I'm a bad speller. Luckily, it doesn't matter. Do you recommend that I use pip or GitHub? I suppose I can use pip in the Docker file too. Yeah. So my plan is to create a project and then have you help me create the Docker file for that specific FastAPI project. All right. And I'm going to explain what Docker is and what Docker files do in just a minute, but let's just do one thing at a time. All right, so let's go back to the beginning here. What did it tell me to do? And one thing that I noticed is that there is a pip and a pip3. I just want to make sure that using Python 3 isn't going to be an issue. Cool. So I'm just kind of showing you is like the reason why I don't just like go into Cursor and say, just build me this massive thing is because like knowing all these little things is like kind of important, you know, like knowing how these little frameworks work and why you would use them. It's the difference between building things out one way and using Flask and then needing to rebuild it later, or kind of starting to understand what these things are slowly but surely, right? So I don't have to understand everything. I'm going to make mistakes. But I'm doing these little research things and just asking the questions so that I don't have to, you know, at least I'm making better decisions from the beginning. If you're enjoying this video, make sure to like and subscribe. It tells me what type of content you want more of. So I'm going to go ahead and run this, but I'll have to use pip3. So let's give this a try. Oop, something happened there. pip3. So sometimes you get warnings and they're not a big deal. Sometimes it is a big deal. So you are using pip version 2.1, however it's available. You should consider upgrading. So if you want to continue to educate yourself, you know, you can come back to Claude. All right, so let's just keep going. So if we wanted to upgrade, we can, but I'm not going to right now. So let's just keep going. So now there's this concept of, I'm not going to go into depth right now on this, but in FastAPI, there's this concept of async and await functions. And it is an important decision, and there's some documentation that we can go down and read, but I'm not going to do that right now. I just want to just figure this out. So, okay. So I'm going to create a new directory, make directory fast. Actually, I'm just going to call it NCA Toolkit version 2. There's always something fun about just starting something from scratch. I don't know why, I've just always enjoyed that. And I'm supposed to name this main.py. So I'm going to use VI. I probably should just use VS Code. But if you ever want to experiment with text-based editors, I'm just creating this here just to start it. I'm going to change it here. I'll go ahead and write this out and come back. Let's go into VS Code. So I'm going to open up a new project. Go ahead and open this up. We've got the main file here. I don't know about you, but I always get annoyed when I get bombarded with things I should do when I'm trying to do something. All right, so let's see here. So we created it, run it. Okay, so we just need to use this command here. So I installed it, but it didn't work. So sometimes when you install something on a Mac, it sets these environment variables so everything, you know, so that the system knows where things are. And sometimes you have to restart the terminal. So I'm going to try that first. And if it doesn't work, I'm just going to go to Claude and say, hey, it's not working. So fast. So it doesn't seem like it's there the way I need it. So let's just go over to Claude and where's my new project here? What did I call it? NCA Toolkit version 2. So, all right. So it's basically saying that I have to do it a different way. That's fine, but why is this telling me something different? I like to know these things. Let's verify what got installed. So let's go through this. So it's there. So check if the CLI is available through Python. So it wants us to run it this way. So we're in our command, we're going to run it the way they did it here. So it looks like it's running. So I'm going to come back and debug this. Let's go ahead and see how this is running now. Let's check it out. See if it's actually there. Hello world, very cool. So I think what we did here was we created a couple of different endpoints. So I'm still curious why I can't run it this way, and I'm gonna solve that. And just so you guys know, like if you're new to programming, this concept hello world is like a really common thing. Like every time someone is taught how to code for the very first time, it's always a hello world application. And so this is just an indication that your app is running. So what I want to verify now is just that my installation is correct here. I think by default, if we come back to the code here and we look at this, what it's doing is it's creating two endpoints. One is a get that's going to return hello world, and then this one is going to kind of simulate an items, like we're searching for a specific item. And then it's also going to create the documentation. So I should be able to, okay, so they've already given me the command, so I can run this, and that's working. That's cool. This should give us documentation on how this works. So this is super cool. So when you create these APIs, it shows you, it creates this documentation for you on the fly. This is the thing that I wanted most of all, because now I don't have to do this. And it's interactive documentation as well. So this is a application called Swagger UI, and it creates two different types. I looked up what the difference was. So it gives you two different documentations, and there's a difference between them, and you can disable one or the other. Although before I move on, I want to figure out this issue. I'm going to run these two things here. I'm going to stop my server. I'm going to run these two commands. So I'm going to tell Claude, I'm going to come down here. I'm going to put the results of this, and I'm going to tell it that this worked. Because remember, we're still trying to figure out why when I typed this, it didn't run correctly. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's see what it says. So you're using Python instead of Python installation. What's happening is installed correctly. So I don't necessarily have to do this. Let's just say, do I have to do this? So it's not going to cause any issues. So let's go back to the documentation here and just kind of see what else is left to do. Example upgrade to receive a body from a put request. So they're basically adding another item here. So I'm going to go ahead and rerun the server. And what's kind of cool about this is that when you're in development mode and you add something new, it's going to automatically just work. So in this case, what we're doing is we're adding another API call. This time we're going to add a put instead of a get. So you've probably seen this if you've come from the no-code space. You've got, when you do an API call, you've seen this. You've got a get, and you've probably seen this a lot, post. And there's put. There's a bunch of different ones. And in fact, if you want, I would recommend coming up here and coming up to Claude and just saying, hey, what are all the HTTP methods and what do they mean? Keep it simple and short. So this will tell you like what these all do. So get, post, put, patch, delete, head, and options. You've most likely just played around with most of these. But it basically just tells the API like what you're doing. Get usually means you're only getting something. Post means you're trying to create something new. Put sounds like it's an update. Patch, partially update. So put is replacing the entire resource. Patch, so this is getting technical. A lot of people don't just disregard this and they just only use post. But there is nuance to this. So I kind of have to decide, do I want to fix this or not? You know what, I'm not going to do it. But basically, if you wanted to fix it so that you could, just call FastAPI the way they've done it, then you can do these updates. I'm not going to do it. So let's do what they did here they added a different put here. So I'm going to come back to VS Code. We're going to drop this in. And then what we should see is this auto reload when we change it. Save it. So it's reloading. Oh, boom, not defined. So what did we do? Let's see what the documentation here said. Did we, oh, see, I didn't really look. They've defined this class here. And we'll talk about what classes are, but essentially what a class is in programming, it's like, you have variables, like you have an integer, right? Like you could just say integer age. What a class lets you do is kind of group like variables together. So if I wanted to create like a person, inside that person would be age, or maybe, when they were born and their height, right? So it allows you to group variables together in a class. So every time I wanted to create a person, I could create that person. So I'm going to copy that. Let's go back over here. Let's drop this in. And I'll save it. Oop. And come back to the server. It's going to reload again. Finished. So now in this case, I'm going to come over to Postman. Instead of going through the browser and testing through the browser, I'm going to officially go over to Postman now. Create a new workspace. We'll call this NCA Toolkit version 2.0. Internal, that's fine. We'll keep it private for now. All right. So now in order to test this, we need a new endpoint. This is a put. Let's go back to the docs here. What do we change here? So now we have a put that goes here. So I'm gonna just grab we had this here. We'll start from this. Here was the URL. And if we look at the code, so this is put item, and are we supposed to send a payload? We don't need that. Let's just see what happens. Details missing. So it's saying that something's missing here. So there's a payload that we're not providing. Body. Raw. Let's just go back to the documentation here. So it had us ask this. Oh, so yeah, it's kind of training us to use our own docs here. Okay. So this is really cool. So now we have our own docs that are getting built out live for us. So then we can see it's telling us here request body parameters. So let's look in here. It's telling us what we need to put as a sample. This is super cool. All right, so that worked. Super cool. This is going to change how the NCA toolkit works in a big way. So I think to kind of finish this out, one thing I'm going to go ahead and do, what I want to do is I want to create a GitHub repository just to kind of start to store all this. So I'm going to go over to GitHub and I'm going to create a new project, new repository. Just going to call it NCA Toolkit V2 private. My plan is I need some place to build this, but eventually what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back into the other repository and replace it. So this is going to take a while. This isn't something I'm going to do next week, but I'll eventually come in and merge in a completely new version so that I don't lose all the stars. I don't want to start a whole new project from scratch. Now there's a lot to think through in order to do that properly, but having this many stars on a project is very rare and I don't want to lose that. But I do want to have a place to build this without interacting with everything else. So I'm going to go ahead and create that repository. Cool. So I'm going to come back to terminal here. I'll actually create a new one. So I'm going to do git clone. Check that out. Well, not check out. I'm going to clone it. So NCA Toolkit version 2. Luckily, I named it a different directory. I'll do a little explanation of Git here real quick as well, if you're new to it, because it's a really cool tool. So VS Code, I'm going to take this, copy it. Let's head over to a different project, open folder. We'll go into this new one where there's an actual Git repository, open that up. New file, it was main.py, I believe. Main.py. Copy this here. Getting bombarded with things that we need to do. All right, so let's save that. Then I'm going to jump back in the terminal. I'm going to come out of this one, come back into the new one where we have the Git repository. Let's run this again, make sure it works. This is super cool. Okay, so it's working. So now what we can do is we can do a Git status. So let me explain a couple things about Git here. It feels really overwhelming, and there's a ton of complex stuff you can do with this, but you don't have to use all that complexity. Essentially what this is it's a way for you to manage source code. So when you start a project, you've got code and you're going to keep adding to it. And at certain points, when you decide, you can basically commit your code, and it's going to keep track of every time you commit the code for different reasons, for a few different reasons, so that you can go back to it, so that you can compare one version to the next. Okay, so if this is V1 and then this is V2, then you can compare them. You can also create different branches. So this is like V2X, and you could have V2Y. And you might have this because you might have multiple people creating or working on your repository and working together and then merging it all back. It helps you keep this process organized because it can get really chaotic. If you didn't have a system to do this, people have been working on code and have developed these solutions because it was so hard to do. Imagine trying to do this with just sending, files with email and saying, hey, I made an update and now you got to do this. So it's keeping this process organized. And there's a few main things that you want to know. You clone. Clone is cloning a repository so that you have your own version. And then there is branching, and this is how you create a new branch. Now there's typically a few standard branches. Well, there's one standard branch, and it's called main. So this is the main branch. So if we come to the No-Code Architects toolkit, so we've got the main branch here. This is where the file this is the branch that everyone downloads as the production version, okay? I have a build branch, and this is where everything gets merged into. So all the features and bug fixes that we're using, all of that goes into the build branch until it's tested, right? Because you could have all of these different features separately that were all kind of pulled off of the main. And then they all have to kind of get merged back in so they're all together again. So we do that in the build branch. We test it, and then we finally push it all back in to the main branch. Okay. And you can see here that we have all these different fixes. So I'm using a basic structure where we have main, we've got build, and then we've got fix / whatever, and feature / whatever. Okay, so this would be fix this bug that somebody submitted. Feature, add S3 uploads. So we got the main comes off into fixes and features, which come back into build, and then build goes back into main. And what's cool about this is that, if you imagine a file here, two people might be working on this same file at the same time. And so when those come back together again, something has to manage that, and that's what Git does. And it does a really good job. So it's either going to merge it all back in without issue, or it's going to detect that, hey, two people are working on the same line. So if me and you both check the code out and we both work on this line, when it merges it back, it's going to have a conflict. And it's conflicts are not bad. Sometimes people think, oh, it's a conflict, that's an error, something went wrong. It's not that it went wrong, it's just that two people worked on the same thing, and that needs to be resolved. The two people need to work together, or one of the developers needs to know enough to resolve it. They fix it, and then they re-upload it, and they resolve the conflict. So that's kind of how that works. Again, so you want to know how to clone. So clone is how you get a clone of the repository. Branch is how you create a new branch. Okay. And I guess I'll do that here. That creates a new branch, and then checkout actually checks that branch out. And then you have add, which adds a new file or change into the repository. And then you have commit, which will take all of your changes and commit it to the repository. And then you have merge for taking a specific branch and merging it into another branch. And then you've got push and pull. And don't feel like you have to grab all this now, but push will push your changes back up to GitHub. So all of this is happening locally on my computer, okay? You want to be able to push that back or pull it back into the repository. So if I do a git status, I just did that. I'm on the main branch. It tells me that there's no commits. It's got untracked files. So this is a file that I added it, and Git doesn't know anything about it. So let's go ahead and say git branch. We'll go ahead and create the build branch. So maybe I can't create that if I haven't actually checked anything. And so we'll do that on a different video. I'm going to go ahead and git add main.py. So now if I do a git status, we're going to see that it has a new file. And we'll do git commit added first file. So this is going to give a commit message, added first file to repo. And then I should be able to git push origin main. And so what that does is it's taking my local copy and pushing this back up into GitHub. Okay, so if I come back up to GitHub, let's go to my new repository. There we go. Okay, let's see if we can do that branch now. Git branch build. Okay, so now it's working. So now I could do git checkout build. So what I did there is I'm in a new branch. So I basically did what I was talking about. I had main, created build, which is now separate from main. So main is here. And now I've got the build branch. And so now I could make changes here, you know, however many I need to make to do my feature. And then I could merge it back in at some later date. So that's successful. I think I'm going to go ahead and stop there as a good stopping point. What I'm going to do next is build out the Docker file, and I'll do that in another video. Hey, by the way, my name is Stephen G. Pope. I've been coding for 35 plus years, and along the way, I've built 2 7-figure tech businesses. And on this channel, I'm going to be doing stuff just like this, sitting down, working through problems, building software without trying to show you some polished tutorial that doesn't really teach you how to think. If you're interested in joining a community of like-minded people, check the link in the description. I've got a new community just for you. I hope to see you there. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one.